So I watched the fights on Netflix last night, and I got to say, I was more than not impressed with what I saw. This was absolutely terrible, and this is now the second strike for Netflix to come across with this Jake Paul, uh, most valuable production company. It's an absolute joke, and the problem they have here is A, they've tied up with Jake Paul. B, they are trying to tap into markets that there's really no place for them to tap into. When they did the boxing debacle several months ago, it was just a bunch of has-beens, a bunch of used ups. Now, in their time, they were great, as in Mike Tyson. But now he's 60 years old, his body's been beat down to nothing, and this is the guy Jake Paul wants to fight. I mean, give me a break. And I understand why he did it because of the name recognition of Mike Tyson, and everybody just assumed Mike Tyson was going to go in there and just clubber this guy one time, knock him out. My personal opinion is he was paid to take a dive, because I don't care how old Mike Tyson is, he still hits like a freight train and 4 times harder than Jake Paul. But he never threw any punches. So I'm going to assume that Mike Tyson was paid, and I don't blame him. If I was Mike Tyson, 60 years old, hell, I'd have taken the payout and taken a dive also. Who gives a shit at that point? You're 60. You're never going to hit your peak again, so take the payout and move along. But with that being said, they decided they were going to do this big Netflix fight. And of course, there again, they pull a bunch of people out of the garbage can. And I'm not trying to say that in a bad way. But these are people whose careers are long gone. They're far from removed. And they're getting these, what I would consider now B fighters, because these are no longer A fighters. They were A fighters in their day, but now they're B fighters. And these are people who are not under contract with the big organizations like with ONE or with UFC, because those people are not going to hook up with Jake Paul to do one of these, whatever you want to call this thing on Netflix. And I mean, this is too and out. If Netflix does this one more time with Jake Paul, I just see this as a massive failure all the way around for Netflix, not for Jake Paul, because he's building his brand, and whatever he can do to get his brand built, that's good for him. But for Netflix, this is, again, a swing and a miss. This was absolutely terrible. These were some of the worst fights I've ever seen in my life, and they were all jokes. They were all stunningly bad. And what's worse than that, the one thing you don't want to have happen at a professional fight is they were stunningly boring. So the main card fights started off with Francis Ngannou and Felipe Lins. All right. I don't know what this was about. Francis knocked him out 431 into the first round. And it was exactly like everybody thought it was going to be. I've never heard of, I got to keep looking at his name to make sure I pronounce this right. Felipe Lins, Lins. I've never even heard of this guy. Where did this guy come from? He may have had a career somewhere, but and I got to be honest, I don't watch MMA as much as I used to, but I used to just watch it continually. I was a massive MMA guy. And I've never heard of this Felipe Lins. And this guy coming in to fight Francis Ngannou, now granted, it's been, a couple of years since he fought, but the dude's massive. And he's still got an MMA career. He's not, gone through the retirement phases as, all these other people did. And of course, he did exactly what we thought he was going to do. Just, knock him out, be done, and move along. So you had 4 minutes and 31 seconds into round one on this one. And then the next fight came up, and this is the one that actually shocked me the most, was Mike Perry and Nate Diaz. This was absolutely a ridiculous fight. Mike Perry, he showed up to fight. Nate Diaz, he showed up for the donuts, because he did not show up to fight. I'm not exactly sure what Nate Diaz was thinking when he took this fight. This was the worst I've been, and I have seen the Diaz brothers fight a million times. These guys you can't kill them. They're like herpes. They just keep coming back. And you could beat on them and beat on them and beat on them. And it's not that, and don't be wrong, in their prime, I'm taking nothing away from the Diaz brothers. They're very awkward, very lanky, and they got a very weird style of fighting. And I think that caught a lot of people off, trying to fight them. But the problem is they would let you beat on them for 2 or 3 rounds. And by the time round 4 comes around, you're exhausted. Then they just come in there and kill you. Well, I don't know what happened to Nate Diaz last night. I don't even know why he showed up for this fight except for the paycheck. And this was, like I said, he was there for the donuts. He came for the sandwiches, for the drinks. I don't know, because he sure as hell didn't come to fight, because he got destroyed last night by Mike Perry. Mike Perry used his face as a punching bag and absolutely beat the life out of him. And my wife came walking in. I was watching this, and I was like, Jesus, look at this. I said, Nate Diaz looks like he got in a fight with Michael Myers. I mean, there was blood being splattered everywhere. It was more of a horror show than it was an MMA fight. And it was so one-sided and so terrible. Nate Diaz he didn't fight. He just stood around and let Mike Perry just beat the life out of him. And there again, Nate Diaz should not be fighting in this. His time has come. It has gone. There was no reason for him to be doing this unless he just needed the money, the paycheck, or just wanted, another shot under the lights, which I understand. But this brings us to the big conclusion of the fight, and this was the Ronda Rousey, Gina Carano fight. Now, this fight was built up with a tremendous amount of hype, as everything that Jake Paul does. A lot of hype, no substance, and that's exactly what happened last night. It was a tremendous amount of hype, no substance. The fights were a joke, and these are 4 hours that we're not going to get back. Netflix should literally discount. They should break down their subscription fee by the hour and refund everybody for 4 hours for watching this god-awful thing. And here's a bone I got to pick with freaking Netflix. If you're paying for the non-advertised version, then why the shit am I watching commercials when I'm watching these live events? The people who should be seeing the commercials are the people who don't pay for the non-advertised Netflix. We pay for the non-advertised. We pay the ridiculous higher fee. And I know what you're thinking. Well, dude, it ain't that high. It is, because it keeps going up. At the rate Netflix is going, this shit's going to be $50 a month before too long. But we pay for the non-advertisement Netflix. So why are we watching advertisements? Because that's a burr in my ass, and that's always been a burr in my ass when that happens. But they hyped the hell out of this fight. And I got to be honest, I did not know what was going to happen. I had no idea. All I know is that Gina Carano was in very, very bad shape, a year, 2 years ago, whatever have you. She'd gained a ton of weight. Did not look good. So this actually got her back into good shape. I mean, because she looks fantastic. If you saw the picture, she looks fantastic. But here's the problem. Gina Carano has 19 years since she fought in the MMA, okay? And it's been 10 years for Ronda Rousey. Either 17 or 19 years for Gina Carano. And it's been 10 years, all right, for Ronda Rousey. But here's the difference. The MMA, like everything else, evolves. The fighting has evolved. You can't be the same fighter you were 20 years ago and expect to walk in there and compete today. Because I'm going to tell you right now, if Ronda Rousey walked into the UFC today to compete, she'd get destroyed, because the fighting has evolved. It has moved like everything else. You can't be the same person you were 20 years ago and expect to go in there and be competitive, because now there's just so many different styles, and people have gotten faster, they've gotten stronger, and it's just like, pro football. Every year, it gets a little harder, minus all those stupid rules they keep putting in, but the guys keep getting faster, they keep getting stronger. Same thing with MMA. These guys keep getting better, stronger, and faster. And you can't take these fighters from, 20 years ago and put them into a ring and say, hey, go in there and kick ass, because you're going to get destroyed. And then you have a 10-year difference between the time Gina Carano was in there as opposed to the time Ronda Rousey was in there, okay? And Ronda Rousey, she's kind of a brawler. Gina Carano was more of a striker. Well, I didn't know what was going to happen, to be honest with you. I thought there would be some sort of fight, but coming out, when I started thinking about it, coming off what Gina Carano had come from, and this is, I explained this to my wife. I said, she never had a chance. My wife asked me why. I said, because people usually train at their fighting weight, per se. You always got to cut weight. But you can't be 250 pounds a year ago and then train to lose all this weight, get to your target weight, and then go in there and have a fight. You can't do that. You needed to be at that weight a year ago and train at that weight the entire time. As in Ronda Rousey, she was training the whole time at the weight she was fighting at. 140 pounds, 145, right around there. Gina Carano was 250 pounds, and she went through cutting all that weight. Then she gets down to her fighting weight of 141 and then has to go into a ring. And you can't do that. You simply cannot do that. You have to train for a year at least at the weight you're going to fight at before you can step into that ring. So I knew that Gina Carano was going to have her hands full when she got in there. What I did not know that it was going to literally last 17 seconds. And like I read earlier, the fight lasted as long as 1 second for every year Gina Carano had been out of the MMA. Now, hats off to nobody. The whole thing was a joke. Gina Carano, I understand why she did it. And honestly, she was the only winner there because it got her healthy again. It got her back into shape for her to go out and do the things she needed to do because she had really let herself go. So she was truly the only winner out of the whole thing. Even though Ronda Rousey did win the fight. And we have a clip of it right here. So just watch this.
Out in full mount, ground and pound. Rousey looking for the arm. And already the arm. It's over. Mamma mia.
And there you go. That was the entire fight. That was it. What she should have expected, being that it's Ronda Rousey, and Ronda Rousey is a grappler, she's a judo person, that she was going to come in, shoot, go to the floor. They should have expected that. But they just missed it all the way around. She come in, shot, took Gina Carano down, armbar, fight over. And apparently they didn't train for that at all. But then again, they should have been training for this at Gina Carano's fighting weight for a year. All right? You can't come down from 250 pounds and keep training, then get to your fighting weight, and then spend a few months training at the weight you need to go in and do a big fight like this against somebody like Ronda Rousey. So I knew Gina Carano did not have a chance at all when she stepped into the ring. And it, kind of sucks. I do like Gina Carano. I thought Disney screwed her over big time, as they did. And if I'm not mistaken, I think I read that she finally settled that lawsuit. Good for her. And but like I said, the big winner was Gina Carano because it got her back into shape, even though Ronda Rousey fought the fight. Then, of course, won the fight. Then, of course, Ronda Rousey says, that's it for me. I'm retiring forever. I'm out. And I'm sure all these people, except for maybe Ngannou, is going to retire. Nate Diaz does not need to get back in the ring, unless, of course, it's with Jake Paul. Then I think he needs to go in there. And, well, I don't know. After what Nate Diaz, the god-awful, terrible performance he put on last night, I don't know if he should ever step back in the ring again because he cannot keep using his face to block punches, because that's all he did last night. He literally used his face. Wherever that guy's hand was going, Nate put his face right in the way to block the punch. I guess he wanted to make sure the guy didn't miss any shots and wanted 100%, hit accuracy, because he literally used Nate's face as a punching bag all night long. And the guy was cut up. He was beat to hell and back and looked absolutely terrible. But this is now Netflix's second strike with Jake Paul. After the boxing match, had they done another boxing match, I don't think anybody would have tuned in to watch it. Nobody. But a lot of people did tune in because it was MMA. Okay, well, we did boxing last time. That was 100% failure. So let's do MMA this time and see what it looks like. And it ended up being 100% failure. So if Jake Paul does another boxing or MMA fight on Netflix, unless he pulls in a marquee name, which he cannot do, it, nobody's going to watch it. He might be able to pull in a big name like Mike Tyson, but Mike Tyson is no longer marquee. Nate Diaz, no longer marquee. Ronda Rousey, no longer marquee. Gina Carano, no longer marquee. They were big names at one point, but they're no longer marquee fighters. And he can't get a marquee fighter. Because like I said, no marquee fighter is going to risk their career on going on this clown show with Jake Paul and doing these god-awful things on Netflix. Nobody's going to risk that and risk their career. I mean, it might as well be the WWE at this point, because that's basically what it looks like is the WWE. And everything I have read today has been 100% negative about this. 100%. So I don't know how many more times Netflix can gamble on this Jake Paul kid with his most valuable productions and keep taking these hits like this. Because if they do another boxing or MMA, I'm not going to watch it. And like I said, unless they have a super marquee name, I don't care if they get St. Pierre on there. I'm not going to watch it because St. Pierre is no longer a marquee name, like I said, and he's well past his prime. So there's no reason for me to watch it. Go in there and watch a boring-ass fight. And that's all it's going to be, is another round of boring-ass fights. And, of course, Jake Paul, I'll fight you. I already beat your ass in boxing. And dude's like, well, I'm an MMA fighter. Why don't we get in the ring? Oh, I'll get you in the ring. And Jake Paul's going to get destroyed in an MMA ring. Destroyed. But there again, kudos to him, because all he's doing is trying to build his brand. As stupid as it is and as stupid as it looks, He's trying to build his brand, and it's working right now. But I can assure you this. If they do this a third time, and it's as embarrassing as the first 2 times, Netflix will have no choice but to cut ties with Jake Paul. They'll have no choice. And like I said, go to Netflix and watch the fights if you didn't see it. All the balcony stands are empty. All of them. There's a bunch of people right there ringside, a couple hundred maybe. That's it. The rest of the stands are pretty much empty. And I thought, well, they'll fill up when a Rousy-Carano fight. No, they didn't. They were just empty. And then, like I said, I read that they were trying to sell tickets for $300 into the nosebleed sections. And then when nobody bought them, they started trying to give the tickets away at the last minute and couldn't even do that. So 2 strikes, Netflix. You can't handle a third. The best thing you can do is just cut ties right now with Jake Paul. Because I can tell you now, and I am a true MMA fan. I'm a martial artist, taking it for a lot of years. I'm going to tell you right now, if you do another MMA fight, I'm not going to watch it. I'm just going to go back to Dana White, go back to UFC, watch that. Watch real fighters who understand what they're doing, who are not 20 years past their prime.